Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Hello, this is Kelly, and you are listening to In Her Voice. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that your March is going well. It's been a year. Whoa, let's just sit with that. A year since the beginning of the craziest year ever. And I'm feeling a lot of feelings. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling tired and exhausted of the constant cycle of bad news, it seems. And yet I'm also feeling hopeful. I'm also feeling joyful. And I just feel led to share that you are allowed to feel conflicting feelings. And even though that doesn't always feel good, I think it's really important just to acknowledge all of the things that you're feeling and to allow all of those things, and to also understand that there are things that you can do daily to help you feel the way you want to feel more often. So that is just a gentle reminder, actually completely unrelated to today's topic on the podcast, but you know, when my inner voice speaks, I allow it, and that's what she wanted to say today. So I just want to let you know I'm sending all of you love, everyone who's listening to this. This is a really, really unusual anniversary that we are experiencing for the first time together. And so let's just feel the feelings and support and love on one another as we do that. Today, I have a really great guest. I have Joanna Kleinman on with me, and we are talking about dethroning your inner critic. Whoa. I mean, we all have that inner critic, and you know I talk a lot about discerning the difference between your inner voice and your inner critic, or the inner mean girl, as I like to call that voice. And this is what Joanna is talking about today. And she lays out this wonderful strategy to start to be able to handle the voice of that inner critic, and to start to be able to neutralize that voice. And I love that she used the word neutralize, because honestly, I personally don't believe it's ever going away. It's there to stay. So how do we learn to live with it? And how do we learn not just to live with it, but to flourish with it? So this is going to be a great interview today. Let me tell you a little bit about Joanna. Joanna Kleinman is a licensed psychotherapist, life and corporate coach, author, podcaster, motivational speaker, and the founder of Dethroning Your Inner Critic. She is an unconventional therapist and is driven by the conviction that the most powerful life you can live is when you know the difference between you and your inner critic. In her book, Dethroning Your Inner Critic, the 4-step journey from self-doubt to self-empowerment, Joanna steps readers through the MIND method, a time-tested, proven system that brings together practical psychology, neuroscience, and the power of intention to discover who you are separate from the critical voice in your mind. With over 25 years of experience, she has worked with corporations such as Campowerment, Cigna, Nestle, and TD Bank, and has transformed the lives of thousands of people. You are going to love this if you ever struggle with your inner critic. Let's get right to it. Well, hello, Joanna. Welcome to In Her Voice. I'm so glad that you're here with me today.
Thanks, Kelly. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And we are going to dig in to this topic of dethroning your inner critic. And I just feel like our conversation is going to be so juicy because my gosh, I have done a lot of work around this myself. There is still a lot of work to be done. So I'm so excited to learn from you today. And I think that among the women that I know and work with, this is a huge issue. So let's start with defining what you call the inner critic. What is that? Can you just like lay it on us? Tell us what it is.
Yes, I can. So I define your inner critic as the voice that literally speaks to you all day long, from the moment you get up to the moment you go to bed. And this is really mind-blowing that there is research that shows that we have 50,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. So it's just this automatic mind, kind of like how our body breathes for us and our bodies, makes our hearts beat. Our mind just goes, and it's conditioned to go to these places. And most people don't know that they are actually, they are separate from this voice. So most people listen to this voice and use this voice to determine how they feel, how they act, right? The choices that they make. And we're just not taught how to think in our culture. And I think that's where I think your work and my work is so aligned, right? Because I think we're both in the, we are teaching people how to intentionally think in a way that has you living a very different life.
100%. And, I know from my own life, from when I was younger, before I started to understand that I get to choose which thoughts I'm going to hold on to, of those 50 to 60,000 that you say, like, I get to pick which ones I want and which ones I don't want. But before I learned that, I thought that my inner critic was the thing that motivated me. I thought that was what I needed. Like, I needed that person or, that voice in there telling me what to do, because otherwise I just wouldn't get anything done. And I think that's a really common, when I talk to people about this, they're like, but I need that. I need that person beating me up. Yep. Otherwise I won't do anything. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's so funny, Kelly. I hear that all the time. So when we are listening to this voice, okay, this voice, first of all, it exists in every single solitary human, okay? So I don't care who you are and what you've accomplished. And, if you think like, oh, well, this person doesn't have that voice. Yes, they do, okay? So this voice gets created when we're little girls and little boys, okay? And so when we're listening to this voice, and really what it says is some version of, in some way, you're not enough. You're not enough of this. You need to have that in your life. You need to fix this. You need to change this. You need to produce that result. And when we are in that mode of thinking, what we're really in is what I will call our survival mechanism, our survival brain, right? Because we've got a brain that's, pretty primitive, right? It's been around for, I don't know, multiple thousands of years. So we only have access to the survival mechanism of fight, flight, or freeze. And what we don't have access to is this whole other part of our minds, which is responsible for creating possibility and innovation and creativity. So when we say like, oh, I need for something to beat me up, to get me to do the things, right? We are limited when we're using that mind. And so here's what I will say. It's a very different life, right? When you're going for your dreams and going for your goals from a place of, well, I'm not good enough yet, but once I get there, whatever it is, right? Once I lose weight, once I get the relationship, once I, meet my business goals, right? That's going to be the thing that's finally going to make me feel the way that I want to feel. And so many people, live this life where they keep running and running and running and running. And you know what? They get their goals, right? They get to where they want to be, but they're still dissatisfied and unhappy. And they've left, what I call a trail of dead bodies along the way, right? They haven't enjoyed the journey.
Including often their own dead body.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Right? Maybe like top of the list.
Yes.
I mean, you might be breathing, but does that mean that you're really living?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And, Kelly, I want to say something about why I call it dethroning your inner critic, okay? Because I don't call it silencing your inner critic. I don't call it banishing your inner critic. I don't call it kicking your inner critic to the curb, because we have had this voice since we've been very little. So we had a 6-year-old version of it. We had a 12-year-old version of it. We had a 28-year-old version of it. We had a 32-year-old version of it. We have our now version of it. The goal is not to get rid of that voice. The goal is to get so intimately familiar with, what does your inner critic say? Why does it say it? When did it first start saying it? How do you know that it's speaking to you? What is that never-ending message that no matter who you are and what you're doing, it keeps delivering to you? And when you can really see it as separate from you, that's when you can spot it immediately when it's taken over your mind. And you can unhook from it in that moment and step into what I call a rewired mind. And that is a moment by moment by moment practice. So there's really, and I'm sure you experience this too, right? In the work that we do, it's like exercise, right? It's not like we exercise for 6 months and then we say like, oh, well, I'm in shape for the rest of my life. I never have
to, right?
Right. So this is really the constant practice of building new muscles in your mind. So you're going to step out of an old conditioned mind that's really been the cause of your suffering and continue to unhook and unhook and unhook. And sometimes that happens 50 times a day. And step into a new mind with completely different thoughts, because it is the different thoughts that are going to be responsible for creating different emotions. And it's those different emotions that are going to be responsible for you taking different actions. And it's those different actions that are going to have your life going in a very different direction.
Oh my! So this is so good. Like, if you could see me, I'm just like nodding my head and smiling. I love it. I want to go back to what you were talking about, sort of that default mind that's conditioned to go to negative. It's that survival,
yes,
fight, flight, or freeze. And I think it's important because you said that's what we have access to, and we don't always have access to the part of our brain that is creative, that is loving, that understands our enoughness, is what I call it, our worthiness, right?
Yes.
So it's really about, like you said, getting to know the inner critic so we can discern the difference between the inner critic and what I call our inner voice, what you call the retrained mind. And I think too that this is like what's interesting about how individually we each talk about this is sort of like science meets spirituality, right?
Yes.
And I think that they're both valid, and I think that they both work together.
I agree.
And so let's talk about how, once you say you start to unhook, how do we start to access what I like to call the inner voice? How do we start to retrain or train again and again and again to not be the inner critic, be the automatic, the default mechanism?
Yeah, that's a great question. So going back, right? The voice gets formed because when we are very little, we all have some experience. It's right. It happens to every single one of us, or we have an experience that in some way something's not okay. Right? It could be something really significant that happens. It could be, your mother yells at you for spilling milk, right? It doesn't have to be anything major, but it's that first moment where we feel in some way something's wrong with us. And the reason why that occurs is because when we're little children, we're trying to make sense of who we are and how we're valued and how we're loved. And we erroneously, every child does this, we erroneously jump to conclusions about why things are happening, and we assign meaning and blame that pertains to us because we're little. And we don't understand really what it really means to be a human being, what it really means to be adults, right? We think adults are like God, right? So this is that what I call the never-ending message that we drag with us through life. So it starts to, right? It's almost like it puts a filter on how we start to see ourselves and how we start to see the world. So
can I just pause you right there? Because
please, yes.
I have done a lot of my own work and work with my clients around this. And some people get really stuck on like, what was the event that caused it?
Yes.
And, while I think that it can be beneficial to figure that out and go back to it, like that can be really healing.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's necessary?
Not at all.
Right. I don't either. No. And I think it's just good to point that out because
great
I don't want people to get stuck on, well, I wonder what it was, like what was the thing or who did it or whatever, because that's not really important.
It really isn't. It really isn't. And, I as a psychotherapist, okay, I will say that I don't buy into traditional psychotherapy, okay? Because I don't think it's useful to, stay stuck in your past and dissect every little, thing that happened in your past. I think that change is about looking at now and looking at what you want to design moving forward. And while, like you said, it is useful to understand, right? When we have, right, when something happens now and we get that familiar feeling, right? It's like that familiar feeling, oh, I'm not good enough, right? Or I'm afraid that somebody's going to judge me, or somebody's going to criticize me, or I'm going to fail, or I'm going to be rejected. And so I'm not going to take that next action that's going to forward my dreams because I'm too afraid of feeling the discomfort of somebody possibly judging me, thinking that I'm not good enough, not liking me, right? So these are the automatic thoughts that keep us stuck because life transforms through action, but action starts with thought. So I created this method that I call the MIND method. It's a 4-step method. And M stands for meet your inner critic. It's really understanding exactly what that voice says. The I step is investigate the indication signs. I call those the blinking red lights that alert you that your inner critic is speaking to you, right? So if you're like yelling at your kids, or you're pissed off at the guy that just cut you off, or you want to eat an entire chocolate cake, or you want to just crawl into bed and go to sleep, right? These are some of the indication signs that our inner critic has gripped our minds. And the N step, and this is what you and I are talking about right now. The N step is neutralize the never-ending message. Because usually when our inner critics are, most front and center in our mind, it really is because something in our world right now, something in our life has pushed a button, right? That we have felt before, right? So for me, my never-ending message of my inner critic is I'm not good enough, right? I have had that around me since I've been 6 years old. I'm 50 now, okay? And here I am, right? I just, released a number one best-selling book. Like everything, right? Everything that I said, oh my gosh, if I got there, that would be the thing that would make me feel like I'm good enough, okay? And yet, my inner critic still speaks to me every day. The difference is I know when I'm not good enough grips me, right? When my fear of I don't want to be judged, I don't want to fail, I don't want to, get criticized, I can see it. I can feel the discomfort of that. I can recognize that I can sit in discomfort. I don't have to run away from discomfort. I can just be with the discomfort. I can know it's just coming from my automatic mind. And I can, in my discomfort, I can still take the actions that are going to forward my dreams. And most people don't want to feel the discomfort. And the game changer is when we can practice feeling discomfort on purpose and knowing discomfort isn't going to kill us. It's just an inner vibration.
So let's talk about that feeling discomfort, practicing feeling discomfort on purpose. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, so think about when you are where you are most stuck or where you are most uncomfortable. We all have these areas where we know, right? There's like an inner knowing, okay? I know that I want more. And yet we're afraid to take the actions to create change because that puts us front and center with the unknown and the unpredictability. I mean, right? If 2020 taught us anything, it's that life is always unknown and life is always unpredictable.
Yeah.
And so doing discomfort on purpose is really about, and this goes back to what you said about spirituality, right? It's being able to sit in the unknown and saying, you know what? I can take this next action and I can, and if the next action goes the way I want it to go, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. I can learn from it. I can grow from it. And then I can use my growth and my learning to take the very next action. Because, here's the thing. Think about this for a moment. Everything that we've worried about for forever, okay? We all have these worries that have been with us for forever. And if you think about how many of those worries have actually happened, the percentage of things that happen that we worry about is close to zero. And if it did,
so true.
It's so true. And if it did happen, we dealt with it entirely differently than we ever dreamed we could have. Now, the flip side of that question, okay, and this is kind of mind-blowing, so think about this. The most extraordinary things that have ever happened to you, like think about the best, most amazing things that have ever happened to you. Did you really have much to do with that? Right? It's like maybe, a few years ago, right? You took a risk that went from, from this place to that place to the, you can put the puzzle pieces together. But when we think about what's guiding our life, so much of our life is guided by some other force. We have to take the actions, right? But with every action, what if we just let go of needing it to go exactly in the direction that we expect it should.
What I hear you saying is take the action, but let go of the reins. Like, stop trying to control every single outcome.
That's right.
Yeah. And that can be hard, I think, for a lot of people, because I think that a lot of people see control, if I can control how everything happens, then I can also control how I'm feeling about those things, which then goes back to like trying to attempt to silence the inner critic, right? It's like this vicious circle of like, if I do this, then I will feel this, then I won't feel not good enough, or whatever is, like you say, the never ending message. And so the work is literally like, I don't know if I would use the word honoring the critic.
Well,
hearing
it's embracing
the critic,
it.
right?
It's really embracing it as a part of you.
Yeah.
Right? So the way that I distinguish it is there is your inner critic, which is conditioned and automatic since you are a little child. And then there's your authentic self. So that's the real power, okay, is when we recognize, in our culture, we think of like emotions. There are positive emotions and there are negative emotions. So we want to feel the good emotions and we don't want to feel the bad emotions. And that's where we've been conditioned erroneously. Because if we're constantly running away from discomfort, okay, you're never going to foster your dreams. Because, and I know you know this, Kelly, right? Any big dream takes risk. It takes the possibility of failure. It takes the possibility of rejection. The Michael Jordans of the world, if you interview them and you say, how did you get to the top of the mountain? They'll start with like, well, I was here and then this, but then this happened and then that led me here. There's no linear path. And so redefining, right? If something doesn't go the way that you want it to go, that doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It means it didn't go the way you want it to go. And right, and where can you learn and take the next action? So there's, to your point, when you say letting go of the reins, okay, there's so much freedom in letting go of control. And instead of trying to control the emotions that we feel, just taking the actions and then dealing with the emotions as they come.
Yeah, and not trying to avoid them. Where I learned this best in my life is in parenting.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, my God.
Because, you're dealing with people
that
have a mind of their own.
Oh, yeah.
And, even little people have minds of their own. And what I discovered to be true is that, like, it's okay for me to take an easier path.
Yes.
Someone said to me once, Kelly, just hit the easy button on this.
Yes.
Why are you fighting it? Why does it need to look a certain way? And this was so true for me with my oldest, who is on the spectrum. Like, I wanted it to be the way I expected it to be. And when it wasn't, I was like fighting and I was suffering so much because I couldn't make it look the way I wanted it to look, as a parent, my own parenting.
Yes.
And when I just sort of let go and was like, you know what? It doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be a certain way. That all of a sudden, like, I was like, it can be so much easier than I'm making it.
Oh my gosh. And, I know you have teenagers. I have teenagers, right? I have 3 teenagers.
My best wishes and condolences to you.
Oh my God, totally. I will tell you that I learned the letting go of control, I swear to God, only in the past, like, couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
I spent so many years trying to control and to your point, suffering, and really causing myself not to enjoy parenting in the way that in the best way that I could, and really causing some friction and tension in my relationship with my children that, looking back, right? If I had known back then what I know now, I might have done it differently, but that's all part of my own growth. Mm-hmm. I created Dethroning Your Inner Critic, and I wrote this book because this is the work that I've been practicing, since I've been 19 years old. Mm-hmm. And that's that. I've been a psychotherapist for over 20 years, but I've also been on my own personal growth journey. And my kids and my business are the two greatest mirrors for my inner critic.
Oh, that you are speaking truth, Joanna. I feel that so deeply. Yes. And I think also such great ways to practice that discomfort daily.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Well, and I want to speak to I think an additional way to work on how you say retrain the mind, how I say really starting to discern the difference between that inner critic and your inner voice, your true inner voice. And I think that can also come from choosing practices that support you.
Yes.
In listening to your inner voice, having daily, I call them kinder habits, because they're things that we do that are kind to ourselves, not punishing or beating ourselves up like our inner critic does, right?
Yes.
But things that come from, I know when I exercise, when I move my body daily, I feel healthy. And that's something that I want to feel. I feel good. I feel in my body. And so that is a kinder habit that I practice. I know when I journal, I can be connected to my inner voice. So do you find that this is also true? So in addition to the discomfort, also finding the things that help you connect with the inner voice.
Absolutely. So I'm just realizing what I didn't, the last step of the mind method is the D step, which is design your life. So what you just said, when let's say you're exercising, okay, but your inner critic is behind your exercising, okay? So your inner critic might say, you should exercise, you're supposed to exercise, you need to exercise, you need to, whatever, you need to look like this or be like this. That's very different than what you call your inner voice, what I call your authentic self, saying, I want to love and honor myself and my body, and moving my body feels good. And I'm designing a life where I value and honor and love myself. And so moving my body in this way, right, is in alignment with that vision. So right, because many people, and this is the sad part, right? They're taking the actions, right? They're whatever they're doing, exercising, eating right, building their business, doing whatever, right? Dating, whatever it is. But when their inner critic is running the show, it's more about pushing and should and supposed to and willpower. And, we use words like, pain and grit and hard work. And that's what's been perpetuated in our culture for so long. And the thing that I think is so important to really understand, everyone's talking about 2020 and, what a tough year it's been. And of course it has. Okay. But as a culture, we were not well before 2020.
Yeah.
We were on a road to disaster. Our children are more, have more mental health issues than ever before. There's more, so much anger and pain and suffering. And that is because for generations, we've been focused, I truly believe, on the wrong things. And it is because we haven't been taught how to think.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, like you said, we've been conditioned.
Yes.
We've been conditioned to think a certain way.
That's right.
And, you know, I think I often think of conditioning as, like you said, training your body.
Yeah.
Right. And like you said, you can't just do something different one day. Like I can't go out and run a mile every single day for 26 days and then think I'm going to be ready to run a marathon.
Right.
It takes a certain amount of conditioning. And the problem is that just as we've been conditioned since the moment that we were born to think a certain way, we have to decondition that and recondition to a new way of being, right?
That's it. It is absolutely spot on. Reconditioning, right? Reconditioning, rewiring. It is literally, right? You're not changing your old mind. And that is often, right? When you're in the self-help space and the psychotherapy space and the life coaching space, right? Everybody wants to go and change your thoughts, change your mind. Well, we can't, because we've been conditioned for so long. What if we just let that voice do what it's always done, say what it's always said and what it always will say, but now we know, oh, that's just my automatic conditioning. Mm-hmm. That's just my automatic mind. It can say, because, you know, when we start taking actions that are in alignment with our dreams, that inner critic gets louder. Mm-hmm. Because it's scary, right? Because we are taking risks. And so, right, instead of changing it, let it be and just unhook from it. And when you take those actions, step by step by step, moment by moment by moment, right? That all of a sudden, you start to see your life unfold in a brand new direction.
Things feel possible.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, Joanna, I just looked at our time and thought, oh my gosh, I could talk about this for another 3 hours.
Yes.
You know, I love what you're saying so much. And you mentioned briefly your book.
Yes.
And I know you go through all of these 4 steps in much greater detail in the book. Tell us about the book and where we can find it.
Oh, great. Yeah. So my book is called Dethroning Your Inner Critic, the 4-Step Journey from Self-Doubt to Self-Empowerment. It was released in November of 2020, and I will say it is a #1 Amazon bestseller.
Congrats.
Yes, thank you. I'm really blown away by you know, how it's been received, and it's on Amazon. And then, you know, I also have a podcast also called Dethroning Your Inner Critic that you know, where I delve into this at length in my podcast as well. But the book, I really wrote it as an owner's manual for your mind, because I think that every human being needs an owner's manual to understand how to really master your mind.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's so true. And, you know, I just want to say to everyone who's listening, it is possible to have your inner voice become your default. That doesn't mean the inner critic's not there, but it's possible to go there first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it feels so much better and so much more loving and so much more aligned. And you get so much more done, you know?
Yes. Yes.
And you feel good about it. So I love this conversation so much. And people can find you on Instagram at Dethroning Your Inner Critic. Is that where you also are on Facebook?
Exactly. Yep. And that's my website as well. Yep.
Okay, great. And we'll put links to all of those things in the show notes. And so you can access them in almost whatever podcast app you're listening will have live links there for you. Otherwise, you can just go to kellycovert.com. So, Joanna, I think this is going to be a super interesting question. In your life these days, what is your inner voice, not your inner critic, but your inner voice saying to you?
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so this is my prayer that I say every morning. I say, God, connect me with the people that I'm meant to serve. And I say that because what I'm really doing in my life right now, right, is I'm letting go. And again, this is moment by moment here, but I'm letting go of my attachments to any, results, and, you know, getting caught in how life is supposed to look, and just trusting that, my passion is just to keep showing up and serving people. And I want to flow. I just want to know that the right people are going to come to me, who are meant to connect with me. And I assure you, that is not what my inner critic has to say.
They hardly ever match.
No, they do not.
Well, I love that, and my wish for you is that you are like a magnet for those people, attracting them in.
Thank you, Kelly.
Joanna, I can't wait to read your book. I'm gonna get it. I noticed that you can read it for free on Kindle Unlimited,
Yes.
which I have. So I'm like gonna download it today.
Great.
And read it. I'm excited about that. And I encourage everyone listening to do that too. And I just want to say thank you for honoring your own inner voice and teaching us how to dethrone our inner critic. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Kelly. And thank you for the work that you do in the world, right? We're changing minds one step at a time. Right?
That's right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I have a confession. This is a recovering perfectionist confession. Something went wrong on that interview recording, and I did not like the sound. My sound was really weird, and I had to either spend an enormous amount of time editing it, or I had to allow it. I had to say, you know what? Perfection is not required. So thank you for listening. Thank you for understanding that I am not perfect. And thank you for allowing me to practice what I preach on this podcast. I really, really appreciate you. I hope that we can all take Joanna's wise words about dethroning your inner critic and this wonderful mind, MIND strategy to really start thriving in this world despite what our inner critic has to say about things. And I know that that is not easy, and I know that it is not simple. And I also know that it is worth the work. You are worth the work. And I just want to encourage you in this. I want you to remember that if you have ideas, if you have a feeling that there is something more for you, that you were put here on this earth to do great things, and I think great things come in lots of different kinds of packages, I want you to know that I'm here for you. And I have been doing more and more of my idea hours. And what I'm discovering is I love so much to work with women who are in the beginning stages of creating something new for themselves. And that could look like a new business. It could look like a new part of your business. It could look like a new venture, a new occupation, a new job, anything that is new for you, like in the beginning stages when it's exciting and overwhelming at the same time. Do you feel me on that? That's what an idea hour is perfect for. Perfect. And if you are feeling like you are in that stage yourself, or maybe you've been in that beginning stage a long time, but haven't taken that action, you have that seed inside of you, but you just don't know how to make it grow, or maybe you're afraid to make it grow, or maybe you're listening to that inner critic that's saying, no, this is not for you, who are you to say you can do this? I am here to help. And it would be my great pleasure to sit down with you and to pull some ideas together out of your head, out of my head, out of the universe, whatever the universe decides to provide, and create a fun action plan for you to move forward, to feel like you are doing what you were put here to do. And I believe we all have that inside of us. If this is speaking to you, if I am speaking to you and you're like, yeah, I need that, go check out the Idea Hour. My gosh, they're so fun. You will not regret it. You can go to Kelly, I can't pronounce my own last name. Go to kellycovert.com/ideas. And I will put a link in the show notes, and you can learn all about the Idea Hour and how to sign up for yours. Remember this, if you have that feeling inside of you that there is something more for you on this earth, that you were put here for a reason, it is not there by accident. It is there on purpose, and it is for you. It is for you alone. And we in this world need you to listen to that desire, to listen to that want and that seed inside of you, because it is your purpose. I believe that with all my heart. Remember this, you are worthy.